think it was about 2010. That was the last time I went to jail for tagging. The whole time that I was locked up, I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna ever get caught again. And I also knew that there's no way I'm ever gonna stop doing graffiti. I'm Kane One. I'm a graffiti artist in Chicago. I'm in 3 different crews here in the city, and crews is just our word for collectives. So we operate as strong sort of painting teams, and it's a great way to inspire peers. It's a great way to stay motivated, to plan out big mural productions, and to pull all of our resources together to create some free public art. It used to mean something a lot different in the 90s when I joined all these crews. Things are pretty much more relaxed nowadays, and everyone's just excited to be painting or to see more work up in the city as a whole. I'm still really interested in blurring the line between what's legal and illegal. I grew up in Pilsen. I've been painting here for 30 years now. I got into graffiti in high school. Graffiti just really was palpable for me as a teenager. I met older graffiti writers in my neighborhood and just started watching people paint walls. And so I would spend hours just sitting on a sidewalk watching other people paint. That's really how I learned how to do graffiti in the street. It was really looked down upon for so many years, and I couldn't even talk about it as an undergrad in painting. But now I'm really excited about where we are, even at the city level, on the amount of support that we're starting to receive and the kinds of initiatives happening citywide. It's really inspiring. It's a great time to continue working. I think there's a huge shift in the city of Chicago in the perception. It was tough as banning the sale of spray paint in 1995. And we still have that ban in order now, so you can't even buy spray paint here in the city. But from arresting people for felonies for spray painting to now commissioning artists with city funds for large-scale murals, it's just a huge swing in the pendulum, and it's amazing to see the support now. I started a campaign called Teach Boys Consent, just as a response to a lot of stories that I've been hearing locally going on in the arts community. I think there's this culmination between the Me Too movement and calling out toxic masculinity online and trying to hold people accountable. And I have children myself, and I was just reflecting a lot as an artist, as a dad, as a concerned citizen. What is something that I can do just as an individual artist? Graffiti Institute started in 2012, and it's really like sort of my response to trying to teach graffiti in other nonprofits throughout the city. I designed a lot of curriculum around graffiti for other institutions. I was meeting some personal frustrations about sort of classroom parameters. And so Graffiti Institute was my sort of response and my answer to how I wanted to teach. Much smaller classroom sizes, much more fluid parameters, much more project-based. And so whenever the work was done, that's when the class ended. Understanding shifts in genres and intentions and politics in art helped me figure out what was going on politically in the world. So hopefully it's the same way that I can inspire other people to understand art as well. Teaching the history of graffiti is just an overview, a look at the trajectory since the 60s in Philadelphia and New York, and talking about work that's unsanctioned, whether it's spray paint or whether it's beautification, gardening. There's a lot of unsanctioned work about art history. And so just keeping it in that art history context, I think allows us to have an honest conversation about it. I'm really in for learning sort of in the long haul of things. I don't really subscribe to being able to teach that well in like 10 or 15 weeks. So if I can get to know somebody in like 3 to 5 years, I feel like I can actually make an impact.
I always think that it's important to have somebody to guide you, especially at a young age. Kane's work with the community has really inspired me to get out there and put in the time and work that it takes to be a part of each community, especially in Chicago. And I think that's been the most valuable lesson I've learned.
When people see my artwork, my hope is that it kicks them out of their mundane habits, that for a moment they ponder something else outside of whatever's going on in their daily life.
All right, he's here to talk graffiti, crews, and tagging. The expert author and poet, Kevin Koval. Welcome, Kevin. I know, right? right.
Welcome, Kev.
I'm not being true.
Good to be back. Thank you all.
Hey, let's talk about the differences between graffiti and street art. What are the differences primarily?
Yeah, well, Miguel mentioned some in this piece. I mean, graffiti is unsanctioned. You know, it's not permissive art, whereas street art is sometimes commissioned, and usually you're not going to get arrested for doing street art. Although there are street artists who do practice illegally, but graffiti is really, you know, the kind of foundation of this moment in street art culture.
Why do you think it's so important to educate young people on the differences between street art, graffiti, and whatever else there is?
Well, it's one of the things I admire about Miguel's work with the nonprofit he started called the Graffiti Institute, is that he maintains this mentor-mentee educational relationship in the graffiti art community that has been fractured by the criminalization of the form. And so once you turn 18, you have to make a choice about, are you going to continue with this practice? And so a lot of the older heads have been retired because they don't want to get arrested, and so the youngins are not, you know, educated in the same way. And so I really admire Miguel's commitment to further that education that has been inherent in the graffiti community.
Right. How much do the people that vandalize people's personal properties, or the bean, what we just saw happen there, how much should they give a bad name to the street artists that are doing these beautiful murals in our city?
Yeah, well, I think because we're talking about it, it does just that. But we have to realize that, you know, young people need outlets for their expressions, and it's easier to buy a gun than it is a can of spray paint, and I think that that is a crime. And I think that what we need to do is really hone and honor the spaces where young people are making, and give more and more outlets for that creative expression.
Right.
You know?
Because the work is beautiful, and there's so many opportunities and blank canvases across the city that they should just give these kids an opportunity. It keeps them from doing other things.
Absolutely. There should be more free spaces. I mean, think about all the viaducts that exist in this city. And wouldn't it be brilliant to give, you know, young people in the city of Chicago, CPS students, that as a canvas to make art on? Right. If we can't fund it in the schools, there's certainly enough space in the city where we could beautify these spaces.
And keeps them busy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about art, graffiti, street art. What exactly is tagging?
Tagging is just a very quick line. You know, it's something that you'll see the most of in the streets on, you know, garbage cans. And then, you know, from there, tagging is elevated to a throw up. And then there's a fill in, which is like a colorful bubble letter. And then finally in graffiti, you would have the masterpiece, or the wild style masterpiece, which takes years and years of trying to master the science of letters.
Yeah, Kevin, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Educated us.
Thank you.